the Security Dialogue.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. You are welcome to another episode of the Security Dialogue on Muslim Television Ahmadiyya International. Today, we take a look at domestic security, and it's going to be tips that we're going to give it to you in order to protect yourself from kidnap activities or kidnapping. When it comes to kidnapping, each and everyone is vulnerable, from the children to us as parents, to colleagues, or any other family member that we might have. And you will agree with me that there's a rise of child abduction, including adults, and molestation around the world. The safety of our children, and including you and I, becomes the utmost priority for all to bear. It is therefore very important and essential to teach both parents and the children, among others, about the danger of this phenomenon called kidnapping or abduction and extortion. And today on the Security Dialogue, we are going to give you some tips, preventive tips, as well as techniques in case when you fall into such a situation, what you are supposed to do. But like we always do, and you know the teachings of Islam Ahmadiyya is to the four corners of the universe. And so we always begin with some teachings or quotation from the Holy Quran. And today we are taking our text from Surah to Yusuf, that is Quran chapter 12, verse 5 to 6. And I'm sure when I read and we go on onto the program, you'll be able to connect this text to the program. And it reads, "Remember the time when Joseph said to his father, 'Oh, my father, I saw in a dream 11 stars, and the sun and the moon. I saw them making obeisance to me.'" Verse 6. He said, "Oh, my darling son, relate not thy dream to thy brothers, lest they contrive a plot against thee, for Satan is to man an open enemy." Why are we getting this scripture in tandem with today's security tips? It tells you that in our day-to-day activities, whatever position that you hold today, whatever thing that you have, there is a need for you to protect it in order not to become a victim to unnecessary attacks. And sometimes it is very important that we take cue from some of this text and relate it to our day-to-day activity. Now, someone will ask, we are talking about domestic security, and what is even security in its essence? We are saying that in a very literal form. We are saying that security is the protection of life and property against threat. So what we are doing is that we are protecting, or we are going to show you how you protect yourself against threat, and that is about kidnapping. Home security. So someone will ask, whose home and why home security? And we say that home security is about protecting one's abode against potential threat. So your immediate environment, it could be the office, it could be your actual home of abode, or it could be any other jurisdiction that we gather among ourselves. It could be that. It could be mosque, it could be churches, it could be the banks, or it could be a marketplace, or like I've indicated earlier, it could be an office space. When we talk of home security or domestic security, we sometimes think about, for instance, what we call the incorporation of physical aspects. And when I say incorporation of physical aspects, I'm talking about when you go to some homes, you have what we call the electric barbed wires, you have security cameras, you have security door, video intercommunication systems. You also have what we call the burglar-proof doors and windows that we use to protect ourselves from external threats. In some homes, they have dogs to draw their attention in terms of any intrusion and all of that. But aside that, we have another aspect that we need to also be very conversant with, and we need to be very attentive to that. And that is about what we call procedural. And when we talk about procedural protection, we are talking about movement. We are talking about communication. So when we talk about communication and we talk about movement, so you move from your house to work, you drop your kids at school, you pick them from school, your kids move around in your environment. Yourself, you go to parties, you go to other gatherings. All are things that we are talking about that incorporate what we call the domestic security that we are going to share with you today. Now, at this juncture, someone will ask, what is kidnapping? What is kidnapping? Kidnapping is the unlawful taking away of another person using force, persuasion, misrepresentation, false promises, or the like to serve as a hostage, to sexually assault, for ransom or reward, or with any other intention or intent. So what we are saying is that when we say that someone has been kidnapped, it means that it could be that the person was forcefully taken away, or the person was persuaded in a certain way and then eventually taken away. When you do that, it is against the will of that individual. What about abduction? Abduction, just like kidnapping, is also the action of forcibly taking someone away against their will. And we can relate in so many ways. Day in, day after, we have seen government officials, we have seen top executives, we have seen individuals, we have seen school children, we have seen women, we have seen men, one way or the other being abducted. And sometimes we cannot find their whereabouts. At the forefront, when you look at the international scene, for instance, when you take a case scenario like the Boko Haram abduction of about 230 plus young women in a school in Nigeria, for instance, is what we are talking about. And you can say that at that level, it is more towards their violent extremist ideology. And what do? They use these children as a bargaining power. That is what we call ransom in whatever that they are looking for. So there are demands that they are looking for from the government. Sometimes they abduct these children and they use them as a bargaining power. And that is what we are going to talk to you about. Now, another one is extortion. So we ask, someone also said, what is extortion? My viewer, we are saying that extortion is obtaining money or other thing of value by violence, threat, or misuse of authority. So you realize that this has been expanded. And when you look at it, when someone, because your child has been abducted, they call you on the phone and say, we have your child in our possession. If you don't give us this money, we are not going to release your child to you. And that is what we are going to talk about today, so that you know what to do and what not to do. Now, in the midst of all of these things, we ask, who is the target? Now we say that the target is identified as the individual, you and I. It could be your imam, it could be your movi, it could be your morabi, it could be your sister, it could be anybody who becomes that target. Or we also say, why do you think that these people become a target to this activity? One, because they are personalities of wealth. Sometimes they have access to money. Sometimes even their employment position alone makes them prone to these attacks that we are going to, or this threats that we are going to talk about. So you and I are prone to that. It could even be on our highways. And fortunately and unfortunately for us at MTA International, we lost our dear one through some of these attacks on our highways. And so this aspect is very dear to our heart. Now let's look at some of the forms of kidnap or abduction we have. We have what we call local syndicate. Local syndicate is to our very immediate environment, so community-oriented. Community-oriented. That is what we talked about, local syndicate. We also have what we call national syndicates across and within a particular country. So for instance, when you take Ghana or when you take Nigeria, from one state, you could see that somebody can be abducted or kidnapped from, let's say, Lagos to maybe Abuja, or in Ghana, someone can be abducted or kidnapped from, say, Greater Accra, maybe to the northern, or from the northern part to here. And we know in various forms, for instance, when you take child trafficking, you go to some part of our countries where, I mean, the fishing, predominantly the fishing areas and the likes, you can see that a lot of children have been abducted or kidnapped in a certain way, and they traffic them. These are some of the things we're talking about. We also have what we call regional and internationalized syndicates. And this is within and between countries. Here in Ghana, at one point in time, we had a very clear example of that when the Canadian children were abducted or were kidnapped. This is an international dimension in tandem with what we call international relations, because the children involved were not Ghanaians. And so we needed to look at it from that angle. So that becomes what we call regional and internationalized syndication of kidnap activity. Now, this is the most interesting part. So in my next line of education, we are going to look at the steps to take. So what are the steps to take? And the steps that I'm going to show to you are time-tested steps that you can follow and improvise to suit your environment. Now, step one, what are we supposed to do? Especially, we are promoting this towards our children. But like I'm saying, when you are listening to protect your child, you can equally improvise to protect yourself. And that is what we are going to do. So step one, it says that know your child's schedule. When we say know your child's schedule, what are we talking about? You should be able to know the time your child goes to school and come back home. You should be able to know the area your child goes to play. If it is mosque that he or she is going, you should know. If it is church that he or she is going, you should know. If it is any community activity that your child is attending, you have to know. So step one is for you to know your child's schedule, including your own schedule. So if you are living in a house with your husband or wife or sister or brother or mother or father, you should be able to know their schedule as well. Number two, know who they go out with. So including yourself, you need to check the kind of people you are going out with. What are the kind of friends that your children are having, and who do they move with? And we are always saying that sometimes kidnappers are not always strangers. They are close to us. And that is why I quoted that scripture in the Holy Quran. You realize that Joseph's sellout to the caravans was not done by a stranger, but it was done by his own brothers. And so no one is neither out of the equation, either a victim or a perpetrator. Somebody very close to you can become a victim and as well a perpetrator. And so we need to look at this. Now, step two. Step two is that. So we've spoken about, for instance, your friends, even teachers, neighbors, relatives. All these people could either become a target or perpetrators. So we need to look out for that. Step three. When we send our children to school, or when we ourselves are at work and we expect somebody, or we want people to pick our children from school, what we need to do is that we have to let our children know beforehand who will pick them from school. So you don't send your child to school and in the midst of your work schedule and then realize that you cannot go and pick them, and then you leave them hanging and you just call a friend or you call any relative or you make other arrangements for them to pick. No, they can become victim to kidnap activity. What are you supposed to do? So you tell them not to go out of the school premises with anyone by informing their teachers or the school authorities. If it is at the workplace, you need to inform somebody at the workplace of that particular instances that you have. Step 4, ask them not to talk to any stranger. So tell your children not to interact with strangers, people they do not know. It includes you who is watching me and you are listening to these tips, that when you are interacting with people that sometimes you don't know, you need to be extra careful of your environment, especially when you are not with your children or when you are alone. And I'm talking about you watching me currently. Step 5, ask the child to refuse being picked up even by relatives without prior information. So if you know that, tell your child, and these are interactions that we need to have. It is a day-to-day routine interaction that we need to have to conscientize our children and conscientize ourselves. That at any point in time that you have not asked anybody or you have not told them that somebody will come and pick them, tell the child that if anybody comes, they say, no, we are not going. Now, look at some of the funny things that these perpetrators, they do. Sometimes they can come and tell your child that, hey, mommy or daddy or uncle has been hospitalized, and so he will not be able to come and pick you from school. And so we need to pick you. By the time you realize he's been taken as captive. It's the same way somebody can come to your office and tell you, hey, your husband is so and so or has been hospitalized and then you need to be right there. This is what happened. And by the time you realize, you jump into a certain car and you open your eyes, you'll be somewhere else. So what I'm saying is that the tips that we are giving, that we are focusing on our children, we can relate it to ourselves. Step 6, get a safety whistle for your child. So what happens is that sometimes when these children are going to school, we need to get them what we call safety whistle. So that when they feel that somebody is about attacking them, they can blow the whistle to draw the attention of standbys or to draw the attention of those who are within that environment to show that this child is what is under attack or is under a potential attack. You can also apply the same thing to yourself. And by extension, sometimes we say that you need to have certain protective gadgets with you. For instance, some are advocating for shocker, but that one you need to get permission. The women normally use what we call pepper spray in protecting themselves when it comes to some of this, and when they feel that they are under potential attack. Now, step 7. Step 7, it says that ask the child to scream as loud as possible to prevent potential attack. It includes you. So whenever you find yourself in a certain environment that you feel that you are under attack, all you need to do is to begin to shout so that you can attract people who are close by to come to your aid. Step 8, do not leave the child alone either in a car, store, shop, mall, not even for a short time. And this one, in this day and age where elitism is eating into our society, sometimes we see when we go to shops, we go to malls, sometimes we are with the children and we leave them and we think that, oh, let me just, maybe I bought something, I've forgotten to take the receipt, so let me just dash and go and pick the receipt and come, and then you leave the child strapped in the car seat. By the time you come, somebody is gone with your child. This can equally apply to you as an adult, in the sense that when you are doing some of these things, you also have to be very careful about your environment so that you can prevent some of this. You only leave these children under care. So if you are with probably your house help or you are with their elder ones, then you can leave them in their care, or perhaps maybe you are with your husband or with your wife. What happens is that sometimes these kidnappers, they will monitor you. And don't forget that they do not just attack anybody. They attack them for various reasons. And we have indicated that sometimes because of what you possess, your possession, maybe your position in society, you become so when we talk about the threat levels, it differs. It differs because the threat level when a minister is kidnapped or when an imam or movie is kidnapped will not be same as I am standing here being kidnapped. So you need to check out for that. Now, step 9. What are we supposed to do? We say, hold their hands. We are talking about children. Hold their hands, especially in crowded areas. So sometimes we go out. We want to go to a place of entertainment, for instance. I mean, sometimes we go to parks, like the same way we go to malls and all those kinds. When you are with somebody or when you are with a child, hold the hands of these children and walk with them in crowded areas. Because sometimes, even for us, when we go for our conferences that we normally do annually, you realize that when you go to the information center, a lot of the children are there, but we call them that it is not the child who is at lost or who is missing, but it is the parent who is missing. Because you see a whole lot of people gathered, and then sometimes these children miss their way out. You might not know who the predator is, and so you need to look out for all of this. So even in our conferences, our annual conferences, security is always very tight. Those who come in and those who go out, we check them thoroughly in order to prevent some of these kidnapping issues that we talked about. Now, step 10, it says that let the child always be in front of you in town and never let the child behind you. So when you go to marketplaces and all of that and you're walking there, let them be in front of you so that you can always have an eye on them. It is equally important that when you are with somebody and you feel that the person is someone probably you oversee and you are working with the person, you need to. So we have a certain way that we walk. Sometimes you don't even walk horizontally, right? So you walk sometimes with one step ahead so that each and everyone can have a certain angle to watch the other person to avoid some of this threats that we are talking about. Step 11, we are saying that keep the details of your children, including yourself, so that in case of this, it will help the authorities to be able to trace the victim. And we can what? We can help retrieve the person. What are some of the things that you need to have concerning your child? So at any point in time that you feel or you hear or you are called and they tell you that, oh, your child is in this situation or we cannot find your child, what are you supposed to do? First of all, you need to have photos of your child. So, I mean, in your bag, you can have it in your wallet and all of that. You could also have birth certificates. So you make photocopies of all of these things and then you keep it around you in your day-to-day movement. You could also have hospital records. What it does is that it helps the security authorities to be able to quickly get that information and trace the child and then bring that child to you. Point 12 or step 12. Teach them not to give personal information to anyone. And here I take a certain serious attachment to that, including how we interact on our social media platforms in recent times. I mean, there is someone that you can say that, I mean, from like they say, from the bedroom to the boardroom, everything about that person is posted on the internet. What it means is that you are at a higher risk than any other person. So the person goes to the restaurant to eat, he posts, so they know where he or she is. He's going to school to pick the children, they post it on Facebook. They go to pick their children up from the school, they post it on Facebook. They are going for meetings, they are posting on Facebook and all of that. Other social media, listen, you make it easier for the perpetrators to track you, and if they have any bad intentions for you, they're able to attack you and attack you fast. So you need to preserve your personal information, and you have to be conscious about that. So let your children equally know. It is not everybody that comes to the house and then they are telling them everything that happens around their house. No. Information protection is very key to this point. Point 13 or step 13, ask the child to immediately say stop to people who might touch them inappropriately. So sometimes we know that, and it even happens sometimes to some of us, the adults. At point in time, we get people that will cuddle us and we feel that they are people that love us. And by the time we realize, and remember, we explained that sometimes the kidnappers do this in persuasion, not through force. And so sometimes they persuade you with some of these gestures. Tell the child that anybody that touches them inappropriately, they should say stop to that person in a loud voice, including yourself, so that you prevent such potential attack. point 14 or step 14, let the child memorize your phone number or emergency phone numbers. And it will interest you to know that husbands, wives, brothers, and sisters are living and they do not even know their own numbers. But hey, they know the numbers of other people that are not even closer to them. Of course, it might be good. In case of an attack, you can call other person. But here, we are saying that you have to try as much as possible to let your children or your child memorize your phone number. If they are two, try as much as possible for them to memorize one. And then also, we have emergency numbers. And internationally, every country and every jurisdiction has its own international emergency lines in terms of security. And when you come to Ghana and you take the police service, for instance, you have 191 or we have toll-free number 18555. Let the child memorize this one. You can even sort of print it boldly and put it at a particular place in your home or at home and let them memorize it. In fact, let it become like a daily routine recital, like the way they recite the Quran and all of that, so that they will put it into their head, so that in case they have a problem, they can equally call, they can give the number out for you to be reached out, and then you can come into their rescue. Point 15, teach them what places they must visit for help and direction. So when, for instance, they feel that they are under some potential attack and they need a place to go and hide, or they need a place to go and seek refuge, or they need a place that can protect them, these are some of the places you can tell the child to go. One, if there's a police station nearby, please tell your child that they should locate the police station and run to the place. For instance, you can also tell them that if they see banks, and we know that banks have some level of security arrangement, so they can run to such places to seek refuge. They can also, if it's in open spaces, you can also go to what we call the traffic warden. The traffic warden, and these days, even that one, you need to really tell them the type of traffic warden that we are talking about, because here in some of the African countries, when the traffic lights are not working, we have individuals who take upon themselves to control the traffic. But we are talking about authorized traffic wardens like the police and the rest. They can, when they see them, they can run to them for help, or they can also fall on neighbors to seek refuge in case they feel under potential threat. Now, the last point in this very section is that is step 16. If the child gets lost or missing in the shop, ask them to go to the cashier and inform them, or he or she is lost. So we are saying that, for instance, like I say, when we go to our conference, we have what we call the information center, and we announce prior to the conference, we tell them that when anything is missing, including human beings, all you need to do is that please walk to the information center and then let them know. They will announce. It's the similar way that we are saying that when a child feels lost in crowded area like shops, malls, and the rest, tell them that they should go to the cashier, because the cashier almost is like the entry point, and then the outer or the in and out point, so they can go there and then present themselves there. I'm sure these days some of the malls have intercom system. They will announce, and then the person comes to there. In the next episode, in this very section, what we are going to give you is that we are going to tell you some of the techniques in case a child is abducted, or in case you yourself you are abducted or you are kidnapped, you are supposed to do. At this very point in time, we take a short breather, and when we come back, we present to you the techniques you need to abduct. Assalamu alaikum. We are still on Security Dialogue on Muslim Television Ahmadiyya.